Hello and welcome again to another episode of Sacktown Talks. Today we're glad to be joined by Assemblymember Chris Ward. Chris, how's it going? Thanks for joining us.
It's good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we were just kind of, chatting offline about you coming here to San Diego. I guess, for those who weren't present, you're listening. Can I kind of catch us up to kind of how you got here? And, you came in for Todd Gloria when he ran for mayor and representing San Diego.
Coming from San Diego, I was really honored to be on the San Diego City Council for a number of years. When my term ended in November 2020, leading up to that, I decided to run for the seat that Todd was vacating to be able to run for mayor. He's doing a fantastic job under some very difficult circumstances. I ran for a job that I really wanted to do. I had some previous experience up here as a chief of staff for then Senator Marty Block.
Oh, okay.
So I had kind of knew what I was getting into on day one, but it is a place I want to be and do even more public good. I'm just really honored to be here.
Right. And, we're kind of talking about your district. Currently, well, I guess there's your district now that you're representing, and then your redistricted district. Can I kind of fill us in there and kind of what your district looks like now and what's it going to look like?
Yeah, the commission really reoriented San Diego pretty significantly, our county. Yeah, so right now I have coastal San Diego from Solana Beach all the way down to the border in Imperial Beach, including Del Mar and Coronado, a lot of our beach communities in the city of San Diego, and then sort of my home neighborhoods that I represented on city council around Balboa Park. I lose the whole coast. They decided that I-5 is an arbitrary line, and they really wanted to have a coastal-centric district. So 8077 now drops all the way down to Coronado. I shift inland, know a lot of our community leaders in Mira Mesa, Tierra Santa, San Carlos, and the San Diego State region. I actually get to pick up SDSU, and I'm pretty excited about that as their representative. So it's going to move a little bit different, but I'm equally as familiar with many of those neighborhoods.
So like Encinitas and Del Mar are now separated?
No,
they're on the other side of the 5?
They are now. They will be united in the new district.
Oh, they will be united. Okay, good to hear. So who's going to get the coast? Who's the lucky winner there?
Tasha Borner-Horvath is the incumbent, and then there is one other person running.
Wow.
Yep.
Man. Are you a little torn about losing the beach at all, but you can still visit whenever you want?
I will always be supportive of our coastal issues. It's important to me. It's important to our broader region. And so those will be things that I'm working on now and will continue to work on. But everything comes from upstream. And we've got a lot of great neighbors and neighborhoods that like to visit the coast. And so I'm going to make sure that they've got good access and a clean environment as well.
Right. So, I guess coming in 2020, right?
Yep.
We were just kind of talking, like, I don't even know what year it is. I think it's 2021 just seems like a lost year. Kind of what was it like coming in, having experience in the building, being a chief of staff before, and then coming in as a member? You think you're going to of one thing, and then you arrive here. Kind of how has that been?
We had a very small class. There were at the time 5 Democrats, 6 Republicans, so 11 of us that came in for new member orientation. We had to do everything socially distanced. Of course, the 80 of us got together for swearing in at the Golden One Center. That was a unprecedented time as well. And we would come up here. There was not the usual sort of orientation or the getting familiar with a lot of people in the Capitol community. Because nothing was going on. Nothing could go on at the time. It was pre-vaccines. Right. So I would come up on Monday. We would, gavel down. We would begin, keep the desk open and start our business. I'd go to my hotel and I would Zoom all day. And then on Thursday, gavel down again and head back home. Right. But we did what we had to do to get through a very difficult time, to get resources back down into the community and to start to learn how to make the legislature function and get the people's business done, even under some pretty unprecedented circumstances.
Right. So there's 80 assembly members. Like to this day, have you had a chance to meet all 80? Are there still some people you haven't met because of COVID? Can you kind of give us some behind the scenes there, like are members interacting kind of like how they used to?
I've had a chance to, meet all 80. It's been, 15 months now on the job. And I'd say after that winter period when things started to open up and we could do outdoor dining, I had the chance to sort of have small group gatherings, 1 or 2 members, and after work, after 5 o'clock, and just get to know them a little bit better. It actually was really good quality time. So for what I did not have to my advantages in the January, February timeframe, we made up for it over the springtime.
Yeah. It's kind of this kind of weird anomaly, it was like 10 years ago when the 12-year term limits came in.
Yep.
And I remember everyone thought that people would stay for 12 years. And now that we've had redistricting and kind of COVID, we're seeing all these members leave. And kind of, somebody asked me the other day, is there something these members are is there a reason they're leaving? Like, do you guys see something in polling or something? or do you think it's just kind of just, I guess, change of situations? People's lives change and are moving on.
I think it's just that. I think it's the confluence of a lot of factors. Everybody's individual's decisions, sort of speak for themselves. Some people had a redistricting challenge, and that kind of made them want to think, do I move or do I just sort of like say 10 years is close enough to 12 years? Some people saw another opportunity. There's been a lot of congressional races that have opened up, and I could appreciate for those members. It's not something that's calling for me, but I could understand how they see that opportunity. Probably, Congress seats come open, every 20 years or so.
Right.
So that is right in front of them to have to make that decision. So it depends on the individual, but it has led up to a pretty big sea change that we see happening in the class of 22. Nobody expected it was going to be a big turnover year, but the legislature persists, and I'm looking forward to some new colleagues.
Yeah, it's kind of a exciting time. It's committee season. Things are kind of heating up here a little bit. Kind of, how's your bill package look this year, and what are some of the things you're looking to do to accomplish here in 2022?
Bill package is really strong. So 17 introduced. I did 15 last year. Really proud.
Really, 15 in COVID?
Did 15 in COVID.
Wow.
We had a rule at the time, which is not in effect today, that we could only pass 12 out of the first house. We had some workload challenges with committees on both sides, the Assembly and the Senate. And so we all probably hit around 15, knowing that, if we were lucky, 12 would pass out of the first house, and then we would be able to see how those got whittled down in the Senate. So I ended up with 7 to the governor's desk and was very proud that he signed all of those.
Wow.
There are still a number of bills that I have, I think 5, that are over in the Senate that for different reasons may or may not move forward. We're going to try to work some of those at the right point in time. But yes, come February, I was able to introduce a slate of new bills. The issues that I work on are some of the biggest issues in the state of California, but also are head and shoulders the biggest issues for my district. I am urban San Diego, so working on housing and homelessness related solutions are the number one issues, and really a co-number one priority is working on environment and climate change policies to really position California to do its part and make its best effort on reducing the effects of climate change.
It's kind of like, everyone's been talking about real estate lately because the real estate market is just crazy. And last year it was crazy.
Yep.
And the year before that was crazy. The year before that was crazy. And it just gets worse and worse. And, I guess the area that, I've been reading and hearing about, San Diego, is like the biggest growth market, I guess, in the nation right now. And, it's a beautiful place to live. They got a great mayor, great representation down there. So I understand why people are moving down there. But can you tell us about housing in San Diego and kind of what you guys are working on and what can you do,
Yeah, no, San Diego is great, and for all the reasons that you mentioned and more. But I would say that what we're seeing in just the, unprecedented and surreal inflation of pricing that we're seeing in housing, we had a 26% growth in pricing for during calendar year 2021.
Wow.
That is just, you said crazy. It's any adjective. It's mind blowing. It is it's depressing for those who are maybe on the cusp of thinking that they could try to secure their first home, and it just gets perpetually out of reach.
Right.
And worse, I think industry's own reports are suggesting that they are seeing continued price increases forecast for the coming year. So what's going on? We know that we have supply-demand imbalances, and for a lot of my work on the San Diego City Council, we were a pro-housing council, really trying to do our part, but also to really show the state of California that some of these reforms were actually possible and would produce lower-cost housing, more units, and we were able to do some of that. And some of that actually did turn into the inspiration for legislation up here in Sacramento. Some of it is still a work in progress. But there's more than just a supply-demand imbalance going on. What I saw during our fall research period is what, from, again, some of the very same industry data, is an increased activity with investor buyers or speculators. Right. And so while you already have some of the normal market challenges around what homes cost, what they price for, layered on top of that, you've got this speculation interest that is distorting the market, I believe, and we need to do something about that.
Well, that's very interesting because, that's something we've been reading about is BlackRock, Zillow, Redfin. They're all kind of, you can type in your address and they'll give you this astronomical offer to buy your home. And so they're buying homes, all over the nation. and kind of doing like, it's kind of, well, what are they doing with them? Are they renting them out? Are they flipping them, et cetera? And they have algorithms and stuff like that. So yeah, when people are looking for a house and you have these, big corporations buying homes, that could definitely hurt the demand, right?
Yeah, well, it's corporations. It's also individuals that have access to gobs of cash, and maybe they earned a lot of that through previous sales that now they are pulling together, capitalizing, and then buying subsequent properties, and even driving some of those prices even higher. Look, for me, when I hear the stories about individuals, and these are good, hardworking middle-class individuals, nurses and teachers that are getting outbid dozens of times, to be able outbid, each time by, something that's $50,000 or $100,000 over asking price by someone or corporation with an all-cash offer. This is a market failure. And I had discussions with a friend of mine who was home from college, who came home to San Diego, and he happens to work on Wall Street right now. Very much a free market person, but even he conceded that there's something beyond the normal going on here. And that's why I wanted to look at, are there other ways that the state should be able to intervene to help level the playing field so that people can actually win these bids?
Right. And I guess what you're trying to stop is speculation, right?
That's right.
Speculation drives prices up. They're already high. We already have demand issues. So how do you stop the speculators, and kind of what have you come up with?
I looked at a bunch of different ways to be able to get at this, and unfortunately, because this is such a profit-driven phenomena, right? You kind of have to go after their risk and make sure that I think an appropriate response is to be able to put some kind of a penalty, use our tax policy a little bit smarter to try to help to shift who wins and who loses, because I want to have that person actually get into that home. We're seeing individuals or corporations come in and short-term flip some of these properties, and that affects the housing market. Let me give you an example. So if you are coming into Midtown Sacramento and buying a house for $1 million, and maybe that's actually a good deal, and you sit on it for 4 or 6 months, and then you sell it for $1.4 million. Well, you just took that $400,000 of equity out of that house, which in current circumstances, some would say, well, it's just the way it is, and that's good for them. Unfortunately, as we price houses, they're based on comparables, right? So now every other house like that is now worth $1.4 million. So you can see how when things are becoming disproportionately ceded to housing speculators and investors, that is actually affecting the overall pricing of the market. I believe that on top of our supply-demand challenges and how that affects the pricing of housing, this is layered on top of that, and we have got to be able to really turn that tide around.
Yeah. So I guess what's the kind of some of the thoughts you're thinking about, like dealing with the tax code, like maybe you have to hold the home for a certain period of time?
Exactly. So I introduced Assembly Bill 1771, the California Housing Speculation Act, and it's modeled after what a few other countries and a couple of states in Canada actually have instituted to try to tackle short-term speculation. There's different variations of it, but in essence, it uses a tax penalty on the income gain, not the base equity and not reasonable growth, but the profit gained from a short-term sale. So for starters, I said we should levy a 25% surtax on the profits gained from a short-term sale if you sold it within 3 years. And I sort of picked that number thinking, how long if I was an investor and I was willing to take some risk, sort of what's that time point that it would be too much risk to undertake? When would I not want to purchase that home and instead invest my money in the stock market? And then that 25% rate, that would actually graduate down to 0% over 7 years. The California Research Bureau provided me with some market information that showed the average length of home ownership is about 10 to 16 years, depending on the region of the state. It's about, I think, 11 years here in Sacramento. It's more like 15, 16 years in Los Angeles. So most people are well outside the window of effect of a proposal like this. It really trains the consequence toward short-term interest. And then, of course, I've heard from a number of individuals when this bill was introduced a few weeks ago saying, whoa, well, I just, what if I had to change my job, or what if I got a divorce, or, life circumstances happen. We can work on those things. And based on some of that initial feedback, I am willing to accept an amendment that exempts all primary residences. If you take the homeowner's tax exemption, for example, then I think that sort of is fair, and you should be exempted from that tax gain as well. But the more that we can train this toward the corporations or multiple property owners that are coming in and taking up limited housing supply that we have, I think the better, the more rational this policy becomes as a response.
So, like, what is current law? Like, currently, what is in effect to kind of stop what's going on here? Or is there nothing? Is there no tax levied if you have a short-term flip?
Right now, there is a corporate tax gain over a certain amount of profit gain from that sale. It's actually a federal law, which the state reflects. However, many of those that are used to, I think, this kind of activity are familiar with the 1031 exchange opportunities,
Right.
which allow you to be able to roll that over through a third party, purchase subsequent property of like value or greater value, and then basically avoid any tax at all by moving that forward. Again, that's taking that income gain and putting that into more expensive property or greater numbers of properties, and then the cycle continues.
Right.
So I'm not changing federal law, but what I could do is have California actually mirror, again, what some of these other countries have shown to be a mitigating effect against speculative activity, and have a standalone tax policy here that will provide that disincentive going forward.
Right. So I guess kind of what are the next steps for your bill? Are you coming up to first committee here pretty soon?
Yep. So it was moved to the Assembly Committee on Revenue and Taxation, and we're going to work with those members and those consultants to make the case for it, and that would be its first hearing.
Okay, great. So we're looking at that sometime March, April.
We're thinking April, but it's a work in progress. We still have a lot of education to do. It's a bit of a new theory idea for California, but it's not untested.
Right. It seems to make sense. It really damped down on that short-term flip stuff, and hopefully kind of help stabilize some of these regions.
That's what it's all about. It's I do worry that somewhere down the road, one of two things is going to happen. More and more Californians are never going to be able to afford a home at all, and this affects condos as well. We know that investment activity is really trained towards middle and even lower income price points. So more and more people are being shut out of home ownership opportunities because of this activity. And worse, if something happens down the road like we saw in 2008, where some kind of financial underpinning, fell out, a market crash, while good for some buyers, would be devastating for the economy, devastating for local government revenues that rely heavily on property taxing forecasts. So for me, I want to make sure that we can do what we can do statewide to stabilize the market so that people can catch up and they can get into their home.
Something else you kind of talked about earlier was not only housing, but the environment, right? And the hot topic right now is gas prices. What are we going to do about gas prices? It kind of goes into what you're talking about. It makes sense for people to live where they work, close. And not having them way out, in the middle of nowhere where they're building to commute. Can you talk about kind of some of your thoughts on gas prices and kind of the green economy, and what should we be doing about helping people who need to commute and live work balance?
It is really a very interesting conversation. I'll say that fundamentally I really train towards a direction that we need to work on urban infill. It's good for the environment when we're building homes and we're creating some density around transit infrastructure. We can make transit work better if more people live close to that. If people are closer to where they work, where they play, where they want to recreate on the weekends, that's fewer vehicle miles traveled. So definitely a direction that we want to incentivize and we want to be able to go. We know the fundamentals of why gas has spiked over just the last couple of months, and those are well outside of Americans' controls. We hope that will come back down because we are seeing the cost of oil actually in the last 6 weeks start to drop again. So gas prices have not, and there's a big question mark what's going on. They should naturally follow the cost of oil barrels on the world market. I hope others smarter than me are looking into that and being able to hold some of the oil companies accountable for that. But we also want to make sure that we are doing our part to help working families and lower income Californians be able to mitigate for whether it's rising gas prices, rising costs of goods, groceries, rent, whatever it is. People are stretched so thin right now, and I hear that all the time, just how on the brink people are. So I know it's going to be a centerpiece for the work that we're doing for the budget, potentially even some early action on the budget to be able to provide that relief. And, Assembly Democrats, Senate Democrats are working really hard with the governor to make sure that we've got a really strong package that's going to help.
Yeah. So what is it like? You said you worked here earlier, in the building, you had experience with Senator Block. I'm sure there were some budgets where there wasn't a surplus, there was a deficit, right?
Yep.
What's it like to have $60 billion, surplus to kind of play with and look at and kind of, help your community with things that might be needed?
I would never call it playing with. This is important decisions, right? And I take that very seriously. These are taxpayer dollars, and so we have to be very smart about how we're putting it out. It's fortunate that we have more to work with right now. You're right. When I started as staff here in 2008, that was the beginning of 2 years of a really horrible recession and reduction in state revenues. You had to make awful choices about, just social service impacts and just really core state services and the social safety nets that that people really relied on. Right. Those are horrible decisions to have to choose from, bad option one or bad option two. So it is a more fortunate situation. We thought coming into this in 2020 that COVID was potentially going to have the same impact economically, and that we might be in for some hard negative budget decisions, but the opposite turned out to be the case. Last year, where we were really excited to be able to make those sort of near-term investments in more affordable housing properties and homeless services and programs that we know are just starting to make their way down to the communities right now. So we can build low-income housing, so we can train more individuals and get the help out there where it's needed. We're making major investments in climate and health and in transportation. So while we have these one-time dollars, and yes, we have another very large surplus to look at, but most of it is one-time support. I think you're going to see some confluence of tax relief, maybe some small business assistance, continued. I was really heartened about the governor's January budget, where he signaled a variety of strategies to tackle climate with another $10 billion approximate investment. And, these are our investments in California's future. And so while we have the fortunate time to be influential in these decisions, I'm going to make sure that we're helping as many people now and helping our kids. I have 2 kids of my own that are ages 8 and 3, helping them for their future.
Right. Homelessness has been a big issue up and down the state, but especially in San Diego, one you're probably really familiar with, kind of dealing with the city council now up here. The governor unveiled a new plan, and, it seems to be something he's focused on. It's kind of evolved over time as, it's just not an easy issue to deal with. Kind of what are your thoughts on the governor's recent proposal, and kind of what do you think? How do we solve this issue going forward?
Incredibly helpful in concept. And I think there's a lot of, there's some detail to be worked out of how care courts would actually operate, and in particular, who would engage individuals who are unsheltered on the streets, in what manner they would engage them, how they connect them with the judge to help make some of those determinations and point them towards programs that are really going to help them, whether they're having a mental health issue, they're openly using substances and need that kind of assistance, or some confluence of the two, or they're just like most of our unsheltered population, they're just unsheltered. They need the opportunities to take those first steps and to have more affordable housing, low-income housing solutions really brought to them. Right. We're working on all these fronts. It is complex in nature. Our solutions have to be multi-pronged, but you have to be pointed in the right direction of housing first strategies that are data driven and we know are going to be able to help people stabilize, and then with the right complement of services around them are going to help point them in the right direction for permanent housing solutions.
Right. I guess kind of the politics of San Diego have shifted so much in the past 20 years. It used to be kind of like a GOP, stronghold. They used to talk about the fish hook, and it used to be kind of like the bottom end of kind of a Republican area. Kind of how have you seen San Diego shift politically in the past 10 years since you've been down there, and kind of what do you attribute it to? It
really has been a 20-year shift, accelerated in the last 10 years, and definitely accelerated during the President Trump's term in office. I actually came to San Diego in 1998. I was pre-med coming out of Johns Hopkins.
Oh, wow.
I thought this is a place I wanted to maybe explore, but More importantly, I was going through a period of my life where I just come out, and so I kind of wanted a fresh start. And San Diego has a vibrant LGBT community, and it just seemed like a great place to sort of spend some of my early 20s and just see what I wanted to do.
Yeah, definitely.
One thing led to another. I got engaged in social services in my community. I was helping out a few people get elected to office. One was Susan Davis, former member here, former Congress member, and through that experience, just met a whole bunch of other people that really inspired me to help change the game. At the time, we were living in a very split town, a Republican mayor, a 5-4 Democrat to Republican council, which easily could have flipped. We had a Republican Congress member that I wanted to see Susan succeed because as somebody from the LGBT community, that person was absolutely not speaking for my future.
Right.
And when I think about other things that are important to me as a Democrat, I definitely wanted to help change the game. So I learned how to campaign, some of the essential tenets of that. I met a guy who was running for community college board through a mutual friend. Name was Marty Block. He won that race, and when he decided to run for the assembly, I had just come back from graduate school. I went to Harvard's Kennedy School and got a master's in something I actually wanted to do. And he said, I'm running for the assembly. I said, I'll help you out. And when he won, he said, I need a person who I can rely on, and I know you could do the job. You want to be my chief of staff, and I'm just grateful for people that open doors for others. I tend to pay that forward and treat my staff the same.
So when did you decide that medicine was off the table? You didn't want to be a doctor anymore?
Pretty much when I was, came out here and I was working on Lou Gehrig's disease. I still am fascinated with the sciences. I'm lucky to represent a lot of the biotech community and the cluster that we have in San Diego. It still is interesting to me, but I did not have the fire in the belly for it. And I think no matter what you do as a profession, you definitely, hopefully it's something that's inspiring to someone and they want to invest all their time in. But you had asked how San Diego had changed. And so, just growing, I think, democratic activism and a lot of our clubs and the work that we were doing slowly over time. We fought hard to try to continue to move a lot of our city council seats to expand our influence to other cities. We have 18 cities in San Diego County, and to try to work city by city at changing some of those councils where we, used to be a 1 Democrat to 4 Republican congressional delegation. That has flipped. It's 4-1 Democrat now, where we used to have a 5-4 Democrat city council. It's now 8-1. With the Democrat mayor, and very likely with the coming election, the 1 Republican left is termed out. He'll probably be replaced by a Democrat, and we will have a full house.
Wow. That's amazing. Wow, that is a big change. I guess something else that's kind of changed a lot over the past 20 years is kind of the growth of the Lgbtq caucus. I remember 20 years ago, maybe there was 1 or 2 LGBTQ members. Now there's 10 or 12. So it's really amazing growth. Kind of, what are you guys working on there this year, and kind of how many new candidates do you guys see kind of growing the caucus?
Yeah, we remember our 4 pioneers, including my predecessor on city council, Christine Kehoe, that started that caucus off. And we're just really fortunate that with a lot of other great organizations like Equality California, Victory Fund, and others that focus on electing LGBT individuals, that we and our allies, we would not be successful without others standing with us and really helping to promote many of those same candidates. So right now we are a caucus of 8 strong. To, I think, have true representation in California. We want to be about 10% of the legislature, so we're hoping to get to 12. So on top of the 8 of us, we've got another 8 candidates that are endorsed by the caucus.
Oh, wow, great.
And we're going to be making a strong push for their success.
No, that's awesome. Wow. 10%, yeah, that would be about right.
Yep.
Well, that's so cool. Well, thank you so much for taking your time to stop by and chat with us. Just fascinating. Looking forward to see how that housing bill goes. It seems to definitely be a help to Californians out there, and hopefully it goes well.
Thanks, Jared. Yeah, no, we've got a few housing bills. We've got other efforts, but, it's going to be a productive year, and I'm really excited to make the case to my colleagues and, get these bills to the governor's desk.
Okay, awesome. Hopefully you have the same success you had last year, 7 for 7. And I guess if some people, listeners, want to get some more information about some of the things you're working on, how can we check that out?
Yeah, I think because it's really, a new concept but an important one, we created a website just for the bill. It's www.cahousingspeculation.org. That has all the information, some testimonials from individuals that are affected, some background articles, a fact sheet, everything you'd want to know. There's also a little button that people can push on there to sign up to support the bill. And, we really look forward to the continued conversation.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.